Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lex Buds and Pick and Roll podcast. I am one of your two co-hosts, Brandon.
And with you, as always, is Tyler.
Tyler, you're always with me, whether it's live in the studio or we're on Zoom like we are today. You know, it never fails. You're always there.
I'm happy to be here. I was getting a little worried we might not be able to make the show happen tonight, but I know the people would miss it if we weren't on their, on their podcast feed on Monday. If it didn't show up, people would be
Yeah,
disappointed.
yeah, and we're not here. We're not in the business to disappoint people, Tyler. We've got some exciting stuff to talk about, sort of, I guess. We have to talk about the UK-Alabama football game. We got to talk about Big Blue Madness that occurred earlier last week, but actually aired on Friday. And we're going to talk about some of the new COVID regulations. I don't know if anybody's heard about those. You may have heard a mention or two about it, possibly. But we're going to talk about some of those as well. And, before we get into it, Tyler, anything interesting happened with you this week? Anything monumental?
Oh boy. It was a pretty uneventful week, I guess, which can be a good thing. We went around and drove around town looking at Christmas lights. That was probably the most exciting thing we did.
Tyler, when you say uneventful, I thought you were going to talk about the football game, but no, it was just your week.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was as uneventful as the Kentucky offense this weekend.
Oh, geez, Louise. Yeah, so this week, I told you I was trying to work on getting a little healthier, right? I'm down another 2 pounds, so that's 7 pounds total. So, it's progress.
Nice. So are you on any specific diet, or you're just eating whatever you want and then just heavily working out?
Liquid diet, Tyler.
A liquid diet. Well, we know how that turned out on spring break, after a week of the liquid diet. So we'll see.
I have no recollection of what you're talking about, Tyler. As I enjoy my glass of bourbon here on the show. Well, I can tell you this. I think I figured out this weekend why there's so much alcohol and bourbon located in Central Kentucky, and I think it's because the people need it to get through some of these football games that we've seen as a Kentucky fan, Tyler. I think it's all starting to come together. I think this is what happened, and let's just go ahead and get into it. I think we need to rip the Band-Aid off and talk about the ASS kicking that occurred this weekend. Are you okay with that? I think we just got to get into it. Let's do it, and let's just get through it, and we'll get through it together.
Yeah, we would be remiss. We are a sports podcast after all, so we have to talk about the big sporting event of the weekend. So as painful as it is, let's get into it. So Kentucky played Alabama in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Alabama, of course, the number one ranked team in the country. Brandon, did you have any expectation at all that we might win? What would you have, if you had placed a percentage chance on us winning, what do you think it would have been?
Okay, well, here's the deal. Alabama's been off for 3 weeks, right, between their game cancellations, rescheduling, and everything else. So they've had 3 weeks to prepare. The other half of it is we've had roughly 3 weeks to prepare because we had an off week. We had Vandy, which should have been an off week, and then we got Alabama this week. So I think we had like a 2.5 week time off, right, in my opinion. Okay. And so I think that, people saying, well, Alabama had 3 weeks to prepare for us, get over it, move on. Before the game started, I thought I would be happy if we could keep it within 30, and that did not occur, not even close. And then you get the news, shortly before kickoff or the day before, that we were going to be short about 10 players, those including Justin Riggs, Chris Rodriguez. Those were the big names. I saw it and I said, we are in so much trouble. I don't even want to know where this game's going to go.
Yeah, Jamin Davis on defense, who's been arguably our best defensive player. Max Duffy, our All-American punter.
Our best offensive player, Max Duffy.
Yeah, we basically had lost our best player on offense, our best player on defense, and our best player on special teams.
And our special teams coach. Yeah, Max Duffy's our special teams coach.
Is he really?
You didn't know this? There's no special teams coach, so he kind of leads things.
Oh, well, he's like 27 years old, so I guess he's old enough to be the coach.
Yeah, one interesting stat is I bet that Max Duffy holds the NCAA record for most yards per punt by a special teams coach. Something to think about. We can look that up later. But anyway, Going into the game, it just didn't look very promising. Not good. Not good at all. And the game proved to be worse than I even thought it could be. I thought we were over this. Growing up, you see the games where we lose to Florida 73-7, 65-0, 49-0 to Tennessee, all these terrible games, and you think, okay, we're so many years into the Stoops era that's behind us. That's not the case. We just got walloped. I don't know how else to put it. In every phase of the game, there was nothing we did well.
Yeah, I think this is the second time this season where I have said I thought we were past these types of losses. The first one being the Ole Miss game. I mean, you and I talked about, we thought we were past losing games the way that we used to lose games, where you just knew something terrible was going to happen, like missing an extra point. So I thought we were beyond losing in such terrible, heartbreaking ways. But I also thought we were beyond these types of blowouts.
Mm-hmm.
This was the biggest blowout of the Stoops era. Was also the third biggest blowout in conference play in the history of the program. Third worst, only behind the 94 and 96 Florida games.
I remember those well.
Which you just mentioned were just absolute drummings.
Mm-hmm.
You thought that Mark Stoops had gotten us to the point where we wouldn't have 50, 60-point losses. But here we are. A day later, 63-3, the final score, a 60-point loss.
Oh, jeez. When you say it out loud, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when you say the numbers out loud like that, Tyler. And by the way, go to our website, lexbuds.com. Tyler wrote a great article basically talking about how this was the biggest ASS whooping since what, Tyler?
Since Luke Skywalker's epic beating at the hands of the Sith Lord Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back, where he just got abused, beaten, got his hand cut off.
Yeah, you would say that Alabama had the upper hand?
Yeah, we left the game a little short-handed.
Oh, man. Oh. But we didn't have all hands on deck for the game either. I mean, we were short. We could go like this all day. It's like the Austin Powers movie.
Yeah, it's great. But, yeah, I was trying to think of a good movie comparison. I was like, what's the worst beating in any movie? And so I thought about that one. I thought about, when Bane beats the crap out of Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Those were kind of the two I was going back and forth between. Any other movie beatings that you think I might have missed out on, or do you think I made the right call going with Luke and Vader and Empire?
You know what? I think that's pretty good. I mean, because I'm a Star Wars nerd, so of course I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm totally going to go with that. But yeah, it was just brutal. I don't know. I didn't like it at all. Nothing about it was redeeming. I mean, we had the long snapper. We've had this conversation before. When you start to know the long snapper's name, there's a problem. If you're the long snapper, you want to be the most unassuming guy on the team. You hope nobody knows who you are and you move along your merry way and maybe play in the NFL if you do good at it. But when people start to know your name, that is a problem. And boy, oh boy, our snapper was killing us. It was absolutely killing. I didn't think we had a shot in the game, but when we were down 7-3, we're getting ready to kick the field goal, and it goes out to the 50-yard line. That's disappointing. And at that point, I think we all knew what was coming after that. The game was a rout. And the other part that hurts too is Mac Jones, who is Alabama's just all-world quarterback, had committed to Kentucky.
Yep, former commit.
So, what about the quarterback play, Ty? We saw 3 quarterbacks in the game. What did you see? Did you see anything from any of them? What were your thoughts? We saw basically 3 different almost styles of quarterbacks in this game.
I don't think anybody besides Terry did anything. Did anybody even complete a pass of our 2 other quarterbacks that came in? I thought Terry played pretty well. At least
Terry played pretty well.
The first
Terry played pretty well.
You didn't let me finish. The first few drives, Terry played pretty well. I mean, you look at, the first possession, we punt, but second possession, we drive down. We're in Alabama's red zone. Terry led a very good drive.
Okay.
Get just a back-breaking holding penalty on Landon Young, or otherwise we're probably punching that in the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
The next drive, instead we settled for a field goal on that one. So 7-3. Next drive, we get the ball back. We hold Alabama, force a punt. We get the ball back. We're driving down in the red zone again with a chance to take the lead. And at that point, you're like, hey, we could be up 10-7. I still had no expectation we would win, but it would have been awesome just even if for one possession we were ahead in the game. I think that would have made a lot of people actually feel better. But then you get just an inexplicable series of play calls from Eddie Gran. 3rd and goal from the 7, we run a quarterback draw up the middle that gets 1 yard.
It's the perfect plan. If it would have worked, you would have loved it.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon Dawson, for that one. Yeah, if it would have worked, we would have loved it. But it did not work, and I just don't understand the play call there. You're not going to get 7 yards on a quarterback draw in the red zone against Alabama. It's just not going to happen. I don't know what Eddie was thinking. That of all the frustrating play calls he has made this year and in his tenure at Kentucky, that might have been the worst call I've seen since he's been here. And then, of course, after that, we get the field goal. Snap goes over the guy's head. So now you had 2 drives, should have had 2 touchdowns where we could have been up 14-7. Instead, we're down 7-3.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You sit there and you wonder what's going through Eddie's head sometimes. I don't get it, Tyler. I mean, it's baffling to me. I don't understand the play calling. You have to be aggressive to win games against the number 1 team on their home field, correct?
Yes.
And I think I always go back to this, the Patriots-Eagles Super Bowl. My thought was, if the Eagles come out and they play conservative, they won't win. Well, they came out with every trick play in the book. They were super aggressive, and they still barely squeaked by. But it took aggressive play for 4 quarters to win that game. And I watched that game, and I just think that's the blueprint for how you have to pull off upsets against great teams. They were able to do it because they never quit and they never played scared. And we never played aggressive. We just don't play aggressive. You can't trade 3s for 7s against Alabama on their home field. You're going to get drilled. You got to take chances. Some people would say calling a quarterback draw on 3rd and 7 is a pretty big chance, but it's a stupid chance. It's a chance that you don't need to take. Because at that point, it looks like they're just playing not to fumble the ball or throw an interception. Instead, okay, worst case scenario, we just end up close here. We should be able to get a field goal. And that didn't even work out. Don't play conservative when you're trying to win on the road. It makes me question how aggressive, how badly we wanted to win this game. It's stuff like that. It drives me crazy. And this isn't the first time this has happened this year. And I don't know that it's going to change. If it was one time, you could say, well, they made a mistake. When it's a pattern, you start to think, well, this is how they are coaching. This is their style. And that's scary. I don't like that. I don't like to play scared. Kentucky football's played scared for years. I'm tired of it. I thought we were past it.
Yeah, I think we have seen this all throughout Soup's tenure. He's just very conservative in his overall scheme. I mean, he's kind of like Calipari. Once he gets the lead, he just wants to sit and run the clock out. Even if the game is close, he doesn't want to take chances, But in a game like this, you have to take chances. You're not going to go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama by coming down and kicking field goals every possession. You've got to get touchdowns on those possessions. And it seemed like almost like I could see the wheels turning with Eddie Gran, that he was thinking back to the Auburn game, the first game of the season, when Terry threw the pick in the end zone.
Yeah.
And he's just like, okay, I don't want to throw it away. I don't have a turnover here. I want to at least play it safe so we at least get 3 points. And just that mindset, it might keep you in the game, but you're not going to win. It's like they were playing just to try to keep it close is how it felt. They were not playing to win the game is how I felt.
Well, you're either playing to be in it or you're playing to win it. And we needed to play to win it. And if they were playing to keep it close, boy, terrible strategy.
Yeah, didn't work out too well.
If that was their plan, boy, did they screw up. I mean, just an embarrassing loss. And, I mean, let's talk about the upcoming game, Tyler, because it doesn't get really any easier from here. We've seen how Florida's played all year. I'm not super confident that we're going to win. I think the line just came out. We're 23-point underdogs. That's very generous, I think.
I'm taking that one. I'm taking Florida minus whatever they are.
What's the score? What do you think's going to happen?
I think we're going to get drilled again. I mean, we're going to have most of the same guys out again. We're probably going to have Rodriguez out again, Davis out again. I mean, we assume all these guys were out for COVID, and it's, a 2-week protocol for them to be out. So there's no reason to think any of these guys are going to be back next week. What's going to change? What's going to be different?
I don't know. I was just hoping you had better news. I agree. 23, I'm hoping that it's within 23. If it's within 23, I'll consider it a win for this particular game because I'm not feeling too good about it. The Vandy game was a disappointment. Yes, we won the game. We won the game by 3 points against a terrible Vandy team. One of the worst Vandy teams that's played, averaging 12 points a game and haven't won an SEC game. That's terrible. We beat them by 3. So that set the stage for what was coming this past weekend. And, I've seen people say online too that, I'm not going to not make light, but I'm not going to downplay the fact that they lost, John Schlarman, their O-line coach, right? They've dealt with a lot, right? I mean, that's a pretty heavy toll to take. And, I saw some people on Twitter say give them a pass. I mean, at some point the pass has got to stop, right? I mean, we can't give them the season's only 10 games long this year. If we give them a pass for half the season's gone. You have to keep going. And in my mind, too, I think, I don't want to speak for John Schlarman, but I would think he was a very tough-nosed guy that always pushed forward and ahead. I would think that, if he was on that football team, he would want to push ahead and win every game and not stop, not quit. And that's what he did as a coach. He didn't quit. He never quit. You can't – I don't think the players want to pass. I'm not saying that either. I just don't think you can keep making excuses for things. At some point, you have to step up and play. Every team is dealing with something. And you just got to step in and make plays and win the game. That's it.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Really, I mean, my heart goes out to this team for all that they've dealt with. I mean, they had to say goodbye to a man that they loved and respected just, a few days prior to this. And we talked about it before. How do you process that as an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid and come back and then be expected to perform at an elite level a few days later? It's hard. And I don't want to dismiss that. And, I think it should factor in. And I think I would be willing to give them a pass if the game had been, 35-7 or, 42-10, but 63-3 is just that's a whole nother level of defeat that I don't think you can give a pass for that.
I agree. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying it doesn't factor in. It'll probably stay with them. I mean, it's going to stay with them their whole lives, especially the rest of the season. But if you keep giving passes in a shortened season, before you know it, half the season's over, and you've given them a pass for half the season. Now you don't get to go to a bowl or anything. You just can't keep doing it. You know what I mean? And I just look back at the way Schlarman coached, and the guy never quit. There was a lot of excuses for him not showing up.
Exactly.
You heard stories about him throwing up in the parking lot after practice. I mean, geez Louise, man. Talk about a guy that could have used excuses and didn't. And I don't think these players would want to take excuses. They had a very good example with him, and you don't want to downplay it, but you also can't let it linger for half the season.
Yeah.
There's got to be a balance there somewhere. I know it's hard, and it's an uncomfortable topic to talk about, but I mean, there has to be some sort of balance there.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of making excuses, I assume you saw AJ Rose's comments after the game was over when he was asked in a post-game interview about the play calling, and let me make sure I get this right, because I don't want to put any words in Mr. Rose's mouth. But the main line that he said is, quote, "We could have called some better plays, or better plays to get us into better position, but that's how the game flow is going." He, referring to offensive coordinator Eddie Gran, called what he thought was needed, and we had to go out there and execute it, and we failed at that. So there was a little bit of him taking blame for the players not executing, but the main takeaway from that quote is AJ coming out and saying he didn't like the play calling. He didn't agree with the play calling thought it could have been better, that the play calling did not put them in a position to succeed. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that's it's not a quote that you like to see coming out after a game where you have players calling out their coaches and the play calling and decision making. Kind of makes you think that the team is not on the same page right now. But what did you take away from that quote?
A couple things. First of all, Rose was probably upset because they didn't call the 75-yard run with a peace sign at the end. I think it's called 75 wide piece or something where he gets tackled.
75 piece.
75 piece. He runs 75 yards and gets tackled, give him a peace sign. But number two, I think anytime you lose a game 63-3, there's going to be blame and people are going to start to question things. And if I was a coach, I would just say, you know what, these are 20-some-year-old guys. They're frustrated. They got embarrassed on national television. Just let them get it out, and we'll talk about it in practice and deal with it. I wouldn't say a word about it.
Really?
Until they got to practice, and I'd be like, oh.
Okay.
What would you have ran? I'll tell you what we're going to run. We're going to run drills for the next 2 hours.
You're going to run some sprints.
Yeah. Let's see how fast you can run. Maybe I'll change the play next time. But I wouldn't make it public. I would just say, guys, everybody gets frustrated and let them get it out, and I would take care of it inside the locker room.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the coaches are going to have to address that. You can't let that go. You can't let something like that go without it being addressed, or it's just going to happen more and more. You can't allow that type of questioning of your coaches within the media. My other takeaway from that, does A.J. Rose have any self-awareness? I mean, does he realize how much the coaches have stuck their neck out for him this season by keeping him as the starting running back? I mean, he comes out the first series every game as the starter, even though everybody knows Rodriguez is the best running back and gets the majority of the snaps. They're keeping him as the starter, which I feel is just a thank you from Mark Stoops to him for, sticking with the team, for coming back and being loyal to a senior. But he is not the best guy. He is not the number one running back. And for him to call out the coaching staff, I'm just like, come on, dude. Do you realize the situation you're in right now? Like how much the fan base would much rather see our two other running backs ahead of you and that are probably both better than you, honestly. But these coaches have been very loyal to him. And so for him to kind of come out and question them in front of the media, I did not like that part. I don't necessarily disagree with him. I didn't like the play calling either, but you cannot say that in an interview.
If you're the coach, what do? Do you publicly come out and say something, or do you do something similar to what I said? Publicly say, "Oh, they're just kids," and then you just run their butts like crazy, or how do you handle it?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I mean, if you address it in the media, it just stirs up more drama and more questions, and just handle it internally. Make him run his butt off in practice. But I don't know. That just kind of bothered me personally. The fact AJ said that after so many opportunities that he's gotten from this.
I totally get it. I don't know. I'm done with football, Tyler. I'm upset. I went through half my glass of bourbon already, and we're just on topic number one. I don't think that's a good sign of what happened this past weekend. I'm ready to talk some UK basketball. You would be so kind.
Let's do it. Let's talk some Kentucky Bubba basketball.
Love Kentucky Bubba basketball. Tyler, did you get to watch Big Blue Madness? It aired this past Friday night on SEC Network. What were your thoughts? Did you get to see it? Overall opinions?
So here are my thoughts. Georgia has a heck of an up-and-coming women's volleyball team. They have some excellent servers who can really paint the sidelines. Florida couldn't quite get as many digs out of the serves. Georgia had some great kills. Florida's going to have to really work on their net game a little bit. They got into the net on a few times. Just a huge win for the Georgia women's volleyball team. That was my main takeaway from Big Blue Madness.
Because you had to go to bed after that, basically, right? Yeah, so for anybody that didn't watch the initial airing, it went like half an hour long, or the volleyball game that preceded that went on for about, 20, 30 minutes longer. And so Big Blue Madness didn't start until 9:30. It was scheduled at 9. And for anybody that knows me and Tyler, I mean, we sleep. so not good. Not a good start. So we had to wait for the delay. But once the production started, Tyler, this was a little bit different. Obviously, there was no crowd. So this players still had their introductions. They came out and sort of did a dance. They kind of just peeked behind the curtain like, oh, I don't know. I thought it was well produced. The player intros were, do you want to talk about the women's basketball, or, do you want to get straight to men's basketball? Yeah, the women's basketball, it was more entertaining introductions than the men's. You know what I mean? I think they had like the families introduce the players is what it was for the women's basketball, which was really cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They seemed to have a lot of fun with it. Didn't take it too seriously. You could tell they were kind of joking around, having fun, introducing the new coach. And we have a really good team. I thought it was cool to have the 3-point contest and see what everybody can do. It was a cool format. As far as the video production and getting the different angles for everything, I think having it pre-taped and then having the chance to edit it and then air it for the television viewer worked out very, very well. So I actually liked that part of it. Any thoughts on the women's basketball besides that, Tyler? What do you think?
Yeah, I love the introductions of having the family members do it. I thought that was, whoever came up with that was a great idea. I wish they had also done that for the men's, because even though having, they had the former and NBA guys introduce the team for the men, I was really hoping to see the family members for that too. So kudos to whoever came up with that for the women's team, because that was just awesome. That was really cool.
Can we agree on this, Tyler? Should they just keep that as an ongoing tradition for both men's and women's?
Yes. I think the men should have done that too. I think they missed a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I think it should be done every year. I saw that and I was like, how did we never think about this before? This is
Yes.
This is genius, because it gives these families who have helped these kids get to where they are have the big screen for one night every year. That's pretty cool. A national TV audience, a live audience when it's in a up of 23, 24,000 people. Put your family on a pedestal. I think it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, could also be a good recruiting pitch too. Like, hey, we're family oriented here. We want the families to be involved, and the mom and dads had to love being on national television, introducing their kids. So it was just a win-win. I think a win-win-win.
Win-win-win, absolutely. But overall, I'm excited about the women's team. I hate what happened with Matthew Mitchell. I really have no clue what's going to happen. We don't know how these players are going to respond. It's a totally different coach. We don't know. There's so much we don't know. This is the first coaching job of her career, right? And what a way to start with one of the top teams in the country, the best in the history of the school. Yep. No pressure. No. Don't screw it up. First year job. Okay. Because you also know if you do a really good job, odds are they'll probably keep you on as full-time head coach. Right now, she's interim head coach. So, you're playing for your job, you're playing for history, and you're playing under a lot of pressure. Other than that, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? It's like, it's crazy. It's a lot of pressure.
Absolutely it is. But moving on to the men's performance, the introductions, you kind of mentioned the dances were kind of half-hearted. I guess it would be very strange to come out and be introduced to an empty arena. So that, it was kind of just weird and awkward having the players come out for that. But, what else are they supposed to do? You do what you can given the situation. But the fun part for me was the 3-point contest and the dunk contest. I think that was the best part of the night. The scrimmage, as always, was crap. I think I actually fell asleep during the scrimmage, if we're being honest. But going to the 3-point contest, I guess we can start there.
Yeah.
Davion Mintz comes out and hits like 14 out of the first 15 balls on the 3-point contest. Let me just go ahead and say, if Davion Mintz is shooting 90% from the 3-point line for the course of the season, I think we may go undefeated if we have a guy shooting 90% from the 3-point line.
He should at least be starting. Right? At least put him in the starting rotation. But you knew when he hit that first score, it was like 22 or something. When he hit that, didn't you just think, nah, nobody's going to beat that?
It was over. Nobody's touching that.
And I didn't know what to expect from Mintz. I had never seen him play. So, I mean, for a first impression, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I was impressed, and I thought his interview afterwards, he just seemed very composed. I mean, I guess that's just what you get with a senior, a guy who's been around for a long time. Usually these freshmen aren't very savvy and talkative with the media when they get questions, but he just seemed very composed and comfortable. And I was just very impressed, not only with his game, but just his aptitude and his composure and his ability to talk to the media. Just overall, in all areas, I was impressed with Davion Mintz.
And I had no idea Olivier Sarr as a 7-footer could, he didn't hit as many as Davion did, but to be fair, he hit a pretty good amount for a 7-foot center. I didn't think he'd hit one. When I saw he was in the 3-point contest, I said, oh, somebody must have got hurt. No, he was in it to actually try to win the thing, So I'm impressed that you've got a guy like that can stretch the floor if need be. It was a real eye-opener for me between Sarr and Mintz. I was very impressed.
Agreed, 100%. And then we get to the dunk contest, and let's be honest, usually the dunk contest, they usually end up being disappointing. I mean, because you have guys who try these fancy dunks that they end up not finishing or end up hitting them off the back of the rim. So it usually,
every time.
It usually just ends up being a wonk on the dunk contest. But, I mean, right off the bat, we get our – I said backup center, but may end up being a starting center at the rate he's moving up. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
I don't know. Who are you talking about? Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
What, Isaiah Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Isaiah.
Okay. I was going to give you like 5 more seconds of struggle, but I decided to come in and save you there. But yeah, Isaiah Jackson, another big eye opener from Big Blue Madness, to put it mildly. And we've heard practice reports about him just blowing up and maybe an underrated player. But go ahead with the dunk contest and Isaiah.
But yeah, takes off. If you didn't see it, please go on YouTube and look it up. The dude is, a 7-footer, takes off. His heel, it looked to be on the free throw line. And unbelievable. I mean, guys that big should not be able to jump like that. It seems to defy the laws of physics how he is able to do that. And man, this kid looks like he could be a star. I mean, granted, it's just a dunk contest, so you can't take away too much from it. But just athletically, seeing what he can do, I don't think we've had a lot of guys that can do what he can do.
Let's say this, how it wasn't just a dunk from the foul line where you stick your arm out and you try to like reach the rim right at the end. This was a full-on pullback tomahawk. That is a whole different level. I mean, you're talking the elite of the elite NBA players that can reach out and do it from the foul line. How many can do a tomahawk from the foul? You tell me. I haven't seen that a lot.
No, not from a college freshman.
Freaky. Zion Williamson had some pretty crazy, dunks like that, but I still, even then, it was unbelievable to me. I don't know. It floored me. And again, it goes with the practice reports we've heard that, don't sleep on this guy. Like, not only is he good, he is maybe one of the best performing freshmen that we have. And we got a lot this year. But, I mean, he just is blowing up. Him and Boston, BJ Boston as well. Everybody seems to think he's going to be, he's got star written all over him. And he certainly has the build. He's got the athleticism. You can't gauge much from the scrimmage that we saw in Big Blue Madness. But if you listen to any report from practice, it's very apparent he's the best player. But Isaiah Jackson's name gets thrown around an awful lot. And it's exciting. This is a guy that I didn't even think about until I started hearing the practice reports. I was like, okay, another freshman. That's fine. But then you start to hear his name come up along with, B.J. Boston. You're hearing Terrence Clark maybe a little bit further behind than what people thought, but Isaiah Jackson is blowing up big time. So, I mean, there's a lot of exciting things. You got Olivier Sarr coming in, an all ACC performer. And then you've got, Askew and Mintz battling at the point guard position. I mean, there's a lot of exciting pieces coming into this season, but there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that have never worked together in a game. So we really don't know what's going to happen. I think this is going to be a lot like other seasons where we, maybe we lose a few games early because we're trying to figure it out, and by tournament time, we have it figured out. Hopefully sooner this year. I get frustrated waiting till February every year for that to happen, but hopefully it happens a little sooner. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Am I the only one who didn't know that Big Blue Madness was pre-recorded? Am I the only one who missed that boat? Did you know it was pre-recorded?
Yeah.
When you were watching it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess I missed that. I didn't find out until the next day that it had been taped. So that was a little disappointing thinking it was live, but, I guess I understand why they did it. And
does it make you wonder about the dunk contest? Because we just talked about it. When it's live, they miss like 50 dunks. Do you think they edited out the first 40?
That's a good point.
I mean?
That's a very good point. How many missed dunks were cut out from the editing table? Yeah.
How good does Tyler Hero look in that dunk contest if he was edited? Right? Because he was pretty bad. They were all they're usually terrible. They miss them all, and they're not exciting. But Isaiah Jackson brought some flair to it, to say the least, and had some of the best dunks I've ever seen by a college player of any, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Some of the best I've seen. Absolutely ridiculous. So, I don't know.
So it got me excited nonetheless. I'm ready for some basketball, and we are 3 days away. We're recording this on Sunday night. 3 days away from the first basketball game. We take on the Morehead State Eagles Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving. Brandon, I'm excited. It'll be my last day of work before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
As soon as I get off work, I get to watch basketball, and I feel like all is right with the world, which we haven't been able to say much in this terrible, terrible year.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I can't wait. If I was going to sit here and break down Morehead State, I'd be lying to you. I can't do it. What I can do is tell you we've got the athleticism. The shooting, I don't know about yet. We've got Davion Mintz. Everybody else is very mediocre. We should win on athleticism alone and having an all-ACC performer. Davion Mintz, a very proven transfer, and a bunch of talented freshmen. We've got the tools. It's just making it work together, and we'll see what happens. That's
Absolutely.
my analysis. We'll see what happens. Terrible analysis, but it's absolutely true. If you look at the football team, we thought we had that somewhat figured out in this weird year. We didn't have anything figured out. We were way off. So I'm still going to hold my, full evaluation of the team until I see what happens here the first couple weeks, because I was way off with the football team. Not even close.
Yeah, as I think everyone was. So it's going to be exciting to get to watch the Cats Wednesday night in the first game of the season. Unfortunately, all of us will have to be watching that game from home because we have had more shutdowns here in Kentucky. If you're listening to this from outside the state, our governor, Andy Beshear, has issued some more restrictions on restaurants and bars. And basically there is no indoor dining, indoor bar areas. Everything is curbside to go now. So no watching the Cats at any of the sports bars coming up. So I think we've got to talk about this. Brandon, is kind of our last segment for the show. What are your thoughts on the new shutdowns by our governor?
Well, first of all, you can still go see the UK basketball team live. There's a capacity limit. They're still allowing that. So, I mean, that's something.
It's what 15,000? Is that what it is?
15%. 15%.
Yeah, sorry, 15%.
Yeah, 15% capacity. So you can actually go indoors and eat in Lexington. It just has to be the Rupp Arena ice cream. So just keep that in mind. So the restrictions that came down, basically, we're not having in-person school, whether it's public or private at this point. I think they've even put a shutdown on private schools. And then no indoor dining of any kind. However, you can put up a giant tent outside and have an outside indoor tent seating, and that counts as outdoor seating.
And let me tell you, I've driven by multiple restaurants this weekend that just have gigantic tents set up in their parking lot, just monstrous. Like, it looks like those big carnival tents. I don't know what's going on under there, but they places are definitely setting them up.
Yeah, and this is the interesting thing to think about, Tyler. This is something I have a question about. Obviously, ventilation is a big thing with the virus. They talk about having quality ventilation.
Sure. Yeah.
Which has better insulation, Tyler? An indoor eating facility that has actual ductwork and ventilation to circulate the air out, or an outdoor tent that's enclosed? Is a professional, central air system better than an enclosed tent?
Yeah, I've kind of wondered. My wife and I were actually talking about that as we were driving by some of those tents this weekend and seeing it. Like, how is that any better? I mean, having a bunch of people enclosed in tight spaces under a tent. I mean, the tent is outdoors theoretically,
but it's indoors. You're surrounded by vinyl.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there has been research on that, but I don't know how and if it's any better. I don't know.
Tyler, I bet that there's not research, because that's why they can't enforce it, because they're like, I don't really know. Do you know? No, not really. I guess we have to let it stay then.
Yeah.
Man, this is really tough, because let's face it. Kentucky's had over 3,000. You remember when we used to get 300 cases a day and people would panic? We're almost at 4,000, right? And there's two ways you can look at that number, right? You can look at it and say, well, the number of cases have went up, and there are people dying. There's no doubt. The rate has gone down significantly from where it was in April or May, which is, you don't want to say it's a good thing. Okay, so don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. But when you see how lethal it is, I feel like that part is getting better. But the incidence of the cases themselves have gotten way worse, like 10 times worse than where we were.
Yeah.
And it's a tricky spot, because we know there were a lot of businesses that were hanging on by a thread anyway. And then, you just wonder if this is the last legs for a lot of businesses. It's tough. And we did a video on our website at LexBuds, if you look at that, where we had some business owners that both agreed and disagreed with the governor's orders for, closing businesses before. And it's just tough. Every business is different. All of them operate differently. And, I just don't know if a lot of them survive. It's tough. They're already having a hard time. And now it's like just cutting off. And those tents are not cheap to rent, by the way. I talked to a business owner this week, and they were telling me the exorbitant price to rent those outdoor tents and to keep them running. Because you don't want to go out and buy those tents, because it's expensive and it's something you hopefully only have to use for this year. So do you want to put this big sunk cost in to this tent that you may never use again? Right? But at the same time, if you rent them, it's very expensive to do.
And how many people are actually, I mean, we're heading into almost December. I mean, we're about to hit really cold temperatures. Mm-hmm. How many people are going to want to sit out in these anyway? I mean, I'm not. Are you going to go in the middle of December, go sit in an outdoor tent for your food, or are you just going to get it to go?
Unless they're lighting a fire by my table, I probably won't. I mean, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fact. It's going to be cold. And I think these places were going to struggle in the wintertime anyway, because a lot of them were counting on outdoor patio seating to make up for what they were losing inside. Well, it's getting colder. So they were probably already bracing for some impact on this, but now it's a full on, like, we may not even be able to do anything. You know what I mean? And it stinks. I don't know what else to say about it. It's tough to see something that people work their whole life for just have the rug pulled out from under them. And, it's just interesting. It seems like a lot of the spread and a lot of the news and science says that it spread mostly within social gatherings at home. You know what I mean? We had the CDC director, I think it's Redford or Redfield, came out on Thursday or Friday saying that spread through even schools was not, I'm not going to say it's non-existent, but it doesn't spread there. They're saying it spreads mostly during family gatherings at your own home, which again begs the question, well, why are schools shut down if the spread's not really happening in schools and it happens at home? So I don't know. The restaurants, I haven't seen any direct and there may be something out there. I haven't seen any direct correlation or any evidence that shows that this is all coming from restaurants. If that's the case, I'd like to see the actual stats on it, because everything I'm seeing says home-based spread, which is scary. That's pretty scary.
Right.
But if that's where it's at, then why are we regulating the restaurants and schools? So it just, I feel like we have data on one thing, but we're closing the things that aren't in it. But I guess that's the frustrating part for me is, the data says X, but we're going to close down the facilities in Y that have not been shown to, impact the way that they're saying. So I don't know. It's confusing. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, right or wrong, no industry has been hit harder than restaurants. Again, we've learned a lot more about the coronavirus, but there's probably still a whole lot more that we don't know. And we probably won't find out for years later whether what we did was beneficial or not. I mean, who knows if this is helping or not by shutting down restaurants. We probably just don't know. But we do know the economic impact.
Well, here's the other thing too is, we're finding that even if you don't die from it, some people are having other weird health problems associated with it. So, I mean, if I'm playing devil's advocate to my own opinion, I always like to look at mortality rate. If I'm playing devil's advocate on myself, I would say, well, that's fine if people aren't dying as much, but a lot of people are having lingering health problems with this.
Right.
So there's like 50 different ways to look at this. You hear the old saying, there's 100 different ways to skin a cat, right? It's the same thing here. We don't really fully know what's going on here, or if the government does, they haven't told us everything. So I don't know. We don't really know, and we won't know, like you said, for years down the road, what this virus fully does, if what we did was correct. I have no idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've always said from the beginning. It's hard for me to be critical of Governor Beshear because, I mean, nobody knows exactly what the right thing to do is. He can only do what he thinks is best to keep the people of his state safe. So I know it sucks. If I was a restaurant owner, I would probably have a completely different opinion on that.
A little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, I just have to continue to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's trying to do what he thinks is the best, for better or for worse. But
then you see what we just led to, though, Tyler, in the beginning was the fact that they're still going to allow 15% capacity in Rupp Arena. So if you're this, and this is where it starts to get dicey. This is where people really start to push back. And this is where he loses people. Lack of consistency. If you're going to tell me that, 15% capacity at Rupp Arena can come inside and watch a basketball game, but you're telling me I can't have 20 diners in my restaurant to keep me alive, to keep me afloat, and keep my business from sinking? How do you view that? If you're the small business owner and you see that and you're like, wait a minute. So these people can go stand in line for Rupp ice cream and Hunt Brothers pizza, but they can't come and get my homemade, how does that work? That's where he loses people. I'm telling you, if he's listening to this show, and I'm sure he listens every week, if it was consistent across the board and there were no exceptions, I think that the message would come through more clear. That's just me from just using my logical brain, not using my bias brain here, which is going crazy right now. I'm trying to leave my bias out of this and say, if I were him, I think it would come through a lot more, but there's probably money involved. Not bribery, but money coming into the school for basketball games. I think it comes down to money.
Well, I am going to make a prediction. I will bet you in the next week to 2-3 weeks, he's going to put the axe on fans at Rupp Arena. And that may just be because of the criticism he's getting, and or maybe, we've seen before in shutdowns that he did things in phases, but I think he's going to have to not allow fans in Rupp Arena. It was like, for one, like you said, it just doesn't make sense that you can allow people there but not in restaurants. And I think it's coming. I'm shocked that it hasn't happened already. I'm 100% agreement with you. It makes absolutely no sense how you can let people come into Rupp Arena but not into a restaurant. What is the difference? I think it's.
I'd love to know.
I think it's going to come, and I cannot argue with that. I think that's a completely legitimate point, and I think that is probably exactly why he is getting so much criticism on that. So,
and the other thing with these is too, Tyler, and this, going back to supporting the big organization like the University of Kentucky versus supporting local business. If you recall in the spring, all the local stores were shut down, but you could shop all you wanted to at Walmart. It's almost like the people with the most money and control get preferential treatment over the local business owner that's trying to go month to month or barely getting it. And I think that was a lot of the pushback initially was, well, why can't we go to Costco, Walmart, and Kroger, but I can't also go to these other places? Because I think I texted you when all that first happened in the spring, Tyler, if you remember. I was like, isn't it worse if you actually funnel everyone in Lexington to the same 10 stores than if you spread them out? You know what I mean? It's like, if everybody's herding to these central stores, is that worse than having them spread out at smaller stores to where there's fewer people? And there's probably an argument there. There may be some science, but it goes back to that whole narrative of, the bigger groups, the universities, the bigger companies get preferential treatment over the small business owner. And you got to square that circle at some point because it's a perception issue. I'm sure he probably didn't intend it that way, but it's a perception, and I don't envy his position. Let me say that.
Yeah, and that's why I think I think we're going to see changes. If you remember, initially they were going to allow fans at the Kentucky Derby, and we said on this show, and so how can you possibly have fans at the Derby but have all this other stuff shut down?
Yeah,
and then what eventually happened? No fans were allowed at the Derby. I think we're going to see the same thing with Kentucky basketball. I think if you've somehow got those 15% of tickets, you better enjoy the games in the next week or two, because I think he's going to put the nix on that real soon. Whether it's because of policy or because of perception, I think it's coming.
Let me ask you this, Tyler. So we saw some news from some restaurants in Marshall County saying that they're basically going to defy the governor's orders to shut down in-person dining. They put it out there. That's them. They put it out there. So we're not outing them. This is public record.
Yeah, you can go to their Facebook page.
Yeah, it's out. What do you do if you're the governor and you have a set of restaurants in a particular county that openly defy your order not to have in-person dining? We saw what happened in the spring when the churches, which I think he's probably not going to do that again, but he did send state police officers, and we covered that live on the scene.
Yeah, you were there.
At Maryville Baptist Church when they pulled in. And so he has done this before. He has sent police to people that have defied the orders. If you're Governor Beshear now, knowing what you know over the last 6 months and how things have worked out, what would you do to these folks in Marshall County?
Well, you can't let them keep opening. You can't let them keep running like that. I mean, you have to shut it down. You've got
what do you
no
mean
choice.
Shut it down, though? What do you do? How do you make that happen? What do you send police?
I think you have to
make a scene.
Okay. How else are you going to get them to shut? You've already told them they have to shut down, so clearly that doesn't work. I mean, what can you do? I mean, call and ask them again. What other authority does he have other than sending police in if he wants them to shut down? What other option does he have? If you know of one, I'm all ears, but I don't know what other choice he is left with than to send police in.
Well, the other choice is to not do that.
Well, then every restaurant's going to do, if you don't have a consequence, every restaurant is going to open up and allow in-person dining.
That's true.
I mean, it's kind of like, but going back to my teaching days, when I was teaching 7th grade students social studies, I mean, if you let one kid away with something, maybe it's the nice kid who's never done anything wrong all year, but if they break a rule and they've been so good, I'm not going to punish them for this. It's just one time. All the other kids in the room are going to see it, and they're going to start to do it, and they're going to be questioning, well, why didn't you do anything to her? Like, we were following the rules. So that's you lose control at that point, and it's going to be chaos. You have to shut it down, and I think that's the only option. I mean, if he wants to enforce this, They've kind of forced his hand to me at that point.
Well, just think about it from a political perspective, though, because we already saw what happened at the Maryville Baptist Church in the spring, correct? And we had the visuals on that, and there were a lot of visuals of police officers, putting permits on cars, correct? And if you're looking at it from a purely political perspective, you and I talked about this, and we even had an article up on the website. There was a time where Andy Brashear could do no wrong. I think his approval rating was like in the 80s. Well, not so long after that church incident, it dropped like 30 points. So if you're looking at it from a political perspective, do you think he takes that into account and says, I can't have police showing up and pulling business owners out of the restaurants and putting them in handcuffs?
I don't think you have to do that. I mean, he's not going to put anybody in handcuffs.
Well, how do you know?
I mean,
how's he going to get them to stop opening?
I mean, you send the police and you tell them, everybody in the restaurant's got to go. You just have them clear out the place, I guess. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I agree. You don't want to put anybody in handcuffs and throw them in the back of the paddy wagon and,
They still have paddy wagons?
I don't know.
I don't know if they have paddy wagons.
It'd be a lot cooler if they did.
It'd be way cooler if they did. I just don't know what you do, though. I mean, if
Can I give you my theory on these restaurants that are defying the order?
Please.
I think they've had this planned. I think this is 100% a marketing ploy. That these restaurants, we've seen groups of them in Marshall County especially that came out and said, we're going to stay open. I think these restaurants decided once they open back up, you know what, if this happens again, we're just going to say we're staying open. And look at all the publicity these restaurants have gotten in the last week. Mm-hmm. I mean, their names have been all over the state. And we have seen, at least my newsfeed, I don't know about your social media pages, people like, hell yeah, stick it to the man, stick it to King Andy. Yeah, stay open. I hope more restaurants do this. And I think you're going to see more people go to those restaurants to support them for standing up to this order that they don't like. See?
That's exactly what it is.
It's 100. Like, I don't think they have any intention of staying open. I think they just wanted to make this kind of publicity stunt to get people's attention and make people want to come to support them in this what is going to be a very terrible financial time for them. I think that's what most of this is for most places, honestly.
Yeah. Do you think
that's my theory?
Yeah. It's interesting because you think about on a statewide basis, right? If every restaurant in every corner of the 120 counties in Kentucky decided to stay open, the state police would be working nonstop to shut them down. So if you got it on a statewide level and every restaurant decided, you know what, we're going to stay open, you would run out of enforcement mechanism. There's not enough police officers to go shut down every single restaurant at the end of every holler in the mountains or every restaurant in the city. You would exhaust yourself and you wouldn't be able to do the regular job. So I think if you're going to do it, it has to be more than just the Marshall County restaurant. No offense to Marshall County. But, I think you'd have to have a bigger effort than that, in my opinion. The other half of it is, too, if you're a business owner that's getting ready to go under and the shutdown's going to kill you, or not kill you, but kill your business, what do you got to lose by staying open? What, are they going to shut down your business a week earlier? When you don't have anything, you have nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if I were a business, if I'm just putting myself in their shoes and I'm a month away from going under, I'd just keep my doors open. I wouldn't make a Facebook post about it, but I would let all my friends and family that have been longtime patrons know, hey, I'm going to keep my doors open. If you want to come in here and eat, go ahead. Just don't post it.
Sure.
If I was going under, if my business was going to be gone anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's why I said this. I think this was a publicity stunt. The fact they did post that on social media. If you wanted to stay open, you could do that without posting it. And word of mouth, how small towns are. Everybody would find out that, oh, hey, Brandon's restaurant's still open. You can go in there and eat. Like, you don't need to make it public so that, the governor's office can see it on social media.
Yep.
So again, that's why I think this, for most of these places, it was just their way of getting extra people to come to support them because they appreciated their fight and them standing up to the governor. I mean,
smart.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Yeah.
Because now you got this whole group of people that are, even if they didn't want to go to your restaurant, they may come from a couple of counties over
exactly
just to come support you. So, I mean, you've just injected your business when it does open back up fully, assuming it doesn't get shut down. When it does, I mean, you're going to be raking in the cash. So it's not a bad idea, really, if you're just thinking about it from a marketing perspective. But, of course, we are dealing with life and death situations and viruses and stuff here. But, we're also dealing with livelihoods, right, and businesses. So that's part of this delicate balance that everyone's trying to work. The governor's trying to work. The public's trying to work it. Everybody's trying to walk this tightrope to get everything to work, and it's just really, really difficult.
Yep. But, so that's we kind of ended the show on another downer, which I feel like most of 2020 has ended shows on a downer because.
And we started the show with a downer.
That's been a whole lot of bright spots. Yeah, we just sandwiched around the positivity of basketball with 2 negatives.
But you know what? Hey, we got to keep it real, Tyler. This is what's going on. We don't sugarcoat it. We don't fluff it, right? This is real life. These are our opinions. This is what's going on in the world. And no matter what, whether it's good news, bad news, you'll always get our honest opinion.
That's right.
That's how we roll, Tyler, as the kids say. At least that's how they used to say it in 1995, I think, when I was growing up. That's how we roll.
But there is some good news because Thanksgiving is this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited for Thanksgiving. One of the best holidays of the year where we can just eat and then go immediately take a nap and then wake up and go eat some more and watch football while we're doing it all. I can't wait for Thanksgiving. Very excited.
What's your favorite Thanksgiving dish, Tyler, before we wrap up here? What's your go-to Thanksgiving dish?
Macaroni and cheese.
It's so good.
Listen, a lot of people mock the fact that people have macaroni and cheese with their Thanksgiving meals. But in the words of Joe Biden, that's a bunch of malarkey because macaroni and cheese, it goes with every meal. I could eat macaroni and cheese with every single meal. It is fantastic. I don't care if it's not a traditional Thanksgiving food. I mean, I always have a big scoop of macaroni and cheese with my turkey and my casseroles and everything else. I'm all for it. But I'm a big, I'm a big turkey guy.
Good.
We usually have some turkey and ham, but I for me, Thanksgiving is all about the turkey. So I just make a big mountain of turkey on my plate. And then the next day I'm making turkey sandwiches. Kind of like in A Christmas Story. No turkey sandwiches. No turkey pot.
No turkey a la king. Whatever that is. Yeah, it is pretty wild, man. I love the turkey and the ham. Like you, I love mac and cheese. It's a universal food that goes with any time of year. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter. And I love making the mac and cheese. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to cook. And I do like cranberry sauce. I'm one of the weird people that loves cranberry sauce. I mean, I could eat it by the bowl full.
Interesting.
And one of my go-to dishes, Tyler, people that don't know this, I do like to cook quite a bit. I make a cranberry pomegranate sauce, and it is fantastic. I mean, I wolf it down like it's my job. So I've always liked it. Even the cans of cranberry, even if you're not making your own homemade, I love the jellied one where you just take it out of the can and it's a big can of cranberry sauce, or if it's got the actual berries in it. Huge fan. Always been a big fan of cranberry sauce.
What is the worst Thanksgiving food?
Broccoli casserole.
What? That's the worst? Really?
I hate broccoli.
Oh, I love some broccoli casserole.
What? I wouldn't have guessed that in a million years. You like broccoli casserole?
I do, yeah. I mean, it's broccoli and cheese. You put cheese on anything, it's going to be good, and you get the layer. Yes.
What?
You are way wrong on that one. You are so wrong. Broccoli casserole.
I feel like I don't even know you, Ty. I've known you my whole life. I feel like everything I know about you has changed.
Well, I eat my vegetables as long as I can smother it in Velveeta cheese. That's usually the way to get me. I'm like a kid. You have to, put my vegetables in something else to get me to eat them.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I was going to go with deviled eggs as my least favorite.
That's right up there too. I can't do deviled eggs. I can't even try one. I'm sorry.
Can't. The smell just gets. I can't even get within 6 feet of them. Like I have to be social distance from the deviled eggs because I can't stand the smell.
But you know what? They look good. If you look at them on the plate, they can look like, oh, that's a cool looking dish. But then when you get within 6 feet of it, like you said, it just is. It's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Deviled eggs is way up there for me. I can't. I would eat broccoli casserole before I would eat deviled eggs.
All right, at least we can agree on that. We found our middle ground there. Very good.
Yeah, yeah, and the Velveeta cheese is a winner. Now I use that in my macaroni and cheese as well.
Well, it's the best. Yeah, it's the only way to go.
Yeah, and I don't even want to know what's in Velveeta cheese. I'm not sure that they can officially call it a cheese. There's probably some loophole in the paperwork where they can call it a cheese. I don't want to know what's in it. Don't care. It melts down really good, and it goes with noodles and stuff. So
Absolutely.
I'm good with it. Don't question it. Just eat it.
Yes. So a very happy Thanksgiving to all of you out there, to all of our listeners and everyone who has supported the show. We hope you have a wonderful day with your friends and family or whoever you're with on Thanksgiving. And we hope you have lots of food to eat and lots of naps to take afterwards.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful thing. Well, Tyler, this has been a fun show. A lot of depressing topics, but stuff we have to talk about. So I'm glad we got through it. And always check us out at lexbuds.com for Tyler's recent article on the game against Alabama. It's pretty funny. I actually laughed out loud a couple times. It's pretty funny. So make sure you check that out. Also follow us on Twitter at LexBuds. Search us on Facebook, LexBuds and Pick and Roll. And Tyler, let's try to get this closing down, even though there's a delay in the video. Let's just roll with it. Let's see how this goes. You ready? We'll see you on the next episode.
Stay classy, Kentucky.
Terrible as always.
It's better than last time.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, we'll see you guys next time.